If you haven't met me or you don't know me, I'm Quentin Beckham. I'm your 2021 president, and welcome to our first general membership meeting of the new year. It's an interesting year, and it brings with it many of the old problems, but also a sense of new hope. We face 2021 in the full knowledge that probably the worst days of the pandemic will likely happen side by side with the vaccines that will bring it to an end. And it was very encouraging yesterday as we went through the NAR leadership training to hear a continued commitment to working towards diversity, equity, and anti-racism. This is generally the point of our meeting where we offer the Pledge of Allegiance. And I have to confess, frequently I say those words just like I did in 5th grade. I spout them out. Once you get me started on the first word, the rest just sort of flows and I don't think about them very much. But with everything that's gone on, I would ask that we do consider them today and that we remember that this is a pledge and that we offer this pledge as a solemn promise to work diligently together towards a more perfect ideal of one nation, that we work in our association and our businesses to get a few steps closer to liberty and justice for all, and that if we are to be a nation that is under God, may we make every effort to listen to the voices of our better angels and offer one another the full measure of grace in this time where so much seems to cause strife and misunderstanding. So whether you sit or you stand, if you would please join me, place your hand over your heart as we offer this pledge no longer as the 5th grader, but as an adult making a promise to work towards a better realization of the words within it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we will be moving on to the approval of the minutes from the December general membership meeting. The minutes were included in the handouts link you received in your reminder email. And if you go to the chat box, you will also see a link there where you can download them. If there are additions or corrections to the distributed minutes, please enter them in the chat. If there are no corrections or additions, then they stand approved as distributed. As we continue to operate in a challenging time, I'd like to remind you to stay safe and follow the recommendations from your local, state, and national realtor associations. As I mentioned in the recent video message to membership, our association continues to strongly advise members against holding open houses. Although we cannot restrict open houses and we want you to run your own business, we do think you should discuss the potential risks with your brokers and your clients before holding or attending an open house. Please continue to reference the Virginia Realtors and CAAR COVID-19 resource web pages when conducting your business. As part of our general membership meeting, I'd like to share some national, state, and local association news updates and reminders. The National Association of Realtors rules and policies have long sought to ensure fair and competitive real estate markets for homebuyers and sellers. In response to questions from the Department of Justice, they've been working diligently to explain their rules. NAR has reached an agreement that fully resolves the questions raised by the DOJ about the MLS system and commissions. As a result of the agreement, NAR has agreed to make certain changes to the Code of Ethics and MLS policies over the next few months, which will be subject to approval by both the NAR board and the DOJ. Although final language is still being determined, most of the changes seek to more explicitly state what is already the spirit and intent of NAR's Code of Ethics and the MLS policies regarding providing information about commissions and MLS participation. While we're on the topic of changes, Virginia Realtors released several revised standard forms as of January 1st. Although I ask that you review them all, I would want to call specific attention to Form 600, the Residential Purchase Contract, Paragraph 9, Settlement and Possession, to provide the Virginia Code definition of settlement. The definition clarifies that settlement and possession can occur when all documents have been signed and funds have been received by the seller or in an escrow account. Importantly, it does not require that the deed be recorded. Recently, CAAR hosted a forum with members of the Broker Council and local settlement attorneys to discuss the VAR form updates. And we feel confident that the local legal community will be working with us to help ease this process and make sure that closing happens as indicated in the contract for all of our clients. Please reference the form changes document in your handouts for additional details. We have also recently been involved in updating several MLS policy documents. We will be enforcing the newest version of the MLS Rules and Regulations document beginning Monday, February 15th. On that date, you will also note several updates to the Paragon MLS platform, including a new comparable-only status, field changes, and several updates in anticipation of the Bright MLS data share agreement. For an update about specific 2021 MLS changes, please visit the comprehensive website we have created for you to reference at any time. NAR has been on a roll this year, putting out new tools and initiatives to assist members and to improve the overall realtor culture. One of its newest efforts is a free training tool called Fair Haven, a fair housing simulation. With this new platform, learners navigate discrimination in real estate through the perspectives of the agent and the client in the fictional town of Fair Haven. The goal is to close 4 real estate transactions by ensuring that when confronted with various scenarios, the client is best served and protected. I ask that you take a minute, look up Fair Haven, and travel through this town. It's hard to believe that we're already in the middle of the first month of 2021. As our association begins to work on new projects and initiatives, it is essential that I announce the 2021 Master Group Chairs and Vice Chairs. These talented and committed members are working with their staff liaisons this week to select volunteers, to serve on master groups, and to serve on project teams. Members who completed a 2021 interest form will receive an invitation to serve soon, and kickoff meetings for master groups will happen in February. If by any reason you missed the 2021 volunteer recruitment, know that you can still complete an interest form as project teams are formed throughout the year. Remember, influence from collaborating among realtors, local government, and the community is one of the many ways CAAR is your gateway to more. Before we move on to the national forecast with Dr. Lawrence Yun, I want to remind everyone that based on usage data and positive feedback from members, we will continue to supply quarterly market stats as well as introduce new monthly stats in partnership with Virginia Realtors this year. This will take the place of showing time, but we feel this is a good decision and will provide the best information for you. And with the housekeeping out of the way, I would like to move on to our main event. I'm sure everyone participating today is constantly being asked by their clients, where do you see the real estate market heading? If only we had a crystal ball to help us with that. And we kind of do. Dr. Lawrence Yun, who is the Chief Economist and Senior Vice President of Research at the National Association of Realtors, joins us today. He oversees and is responsible for a wide range of research activity for the association, including NAR's existing home sales statistics, affordability index, and home buyers and sellers profile report. He regularly provides commentary on real estate market trends for its 1.4 million realtors. Dr. Yun, we cannot thank you enough for being with us this morning and sharing your insight on what's to come. At this time, I'd like to pass this meeting over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, President Quinton, for inviting me to share some thoughts with the realtors from Charlottesville. Well, Charlottesville has a special place in my heart because my son graduated from UVA just, what was it? Yeah, supposed to be last May. That's when the graduation occurred because we did the virtual graduation. Now he graduated, which means that I have a less opportunity to visit the beautiful place surrounding the Charlottesville region. So that's one regret. But he did graduate in 3 years, which saved 1 year of tuition fee. So, you know, trying to evaluate the cost and benefit, but I certainly enjoy visiting the Charlottesville area region, the nearby mountains, just the peaceful wineries, everything in the region. Well, the 2020, we are happy that it is passed, but sometimes we wonder whether it is really passed or not, given all the disruption that has been happened in 2020 with the pandemic, and even just last week in the U.S. Capitol. NAR office is just 2 blocks from the U.S. Capitol. And on the roof of the building, we often invite members of Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, to share some policy issue related to real estate, to assure that they support real estate causes. But the 2020, it's sort of lingering on in terms of all the disruptive impact. So let's hope for the best for the country. And if one looks at the tombstone of Thomas Jefferson in Monticello, he will say he is the author of the Declaration of Independence, the author of the Statute of Virginia, which specified the freedom of religion. And he doesn't mention the presidency for some reason, but he said he is the father of the University of Virginia because he thought the dissemination of knowledge, acquiring knowledge is one of the best pursuit for humanity. But nonetheless, 2020, to some degree, a lot of surprises. But one area of great surprise is the housing sector. When we had the lockdown back in April of last year, there was a great deal of concern. What's going to happen to the real estate? I received many calls from the reporters. Are we going to face a second foreclosure crisis from what happened 10 years ago when the subprime lending blew up? And my response to the reporter was simply that we shouldn't anticipate the repeat because the fundamental backdrop is different. We don't have those funny, bad mortgages, subprime lending, which essentially gave mortgages to overstretch people's budget, even without income documentation in some cases, and adjustable rate resets. All those bad situations, those bad mortgages, we don't have. Furthermore, we didn't have oversupply. In fact, we had a housing shortage right before the pandemic. So with the pandemic housing shortage, the home prices were likely to remain relatively fine, at least not decline in any measurable way. So that's the way I relate to reporters to say, no, I don't anticipate any massive foreclosure crisis. What I did not anticipate was for the housing market to completely soar way beyond what had happened pre-pandemic level. So quite a surprise and a welcoming surprise for all people in the real estate because one of the few bright sectors in the economy. Let me further share my thoughts with the PowerPoint screen. As an economist, I speak better with slides, so let me upload that onto the screen here. All right, so how to evaluate what we experience as well as what we can anticipate in 2021. So this is a job situation over the past 20 years, from year 2000. The small little hump that you see in the middle of the graph is a artificial job creation. We know that in hindsight, it was subprime-led job creation, that when we had a foreclosure crisis, all the jobs were lost. From the low point in 2010, America experienced the longest period of job creation ever, 10 straight years of job creation. You can say President Obama, President Trump, it went straight up such that unemployment rate across all age groups, all demographic groups, all racial groups hit a generational low. Economy was doing terrific. In fact, January of 2020, this time last year, Goldman Sachs came out with a report to say US economy is so strong, it is recession-proof economy in a presidential election year. So that's how Goldman Sachs came out in January. Then of course, pandemic hit us. And in April, the job losses plunged. 10 years of job progress gone in a single month. So quite a harsh economic turnaround or the downturn back in April. But once the governors began to slowly reopen the economy, jobs began to slowly come around. We are not back to normal by any sense. We need another 10 million jobs to get us back to the pre-pandemic levels. And much of the job losses has been on the front lines, people working at the restaurants, people working at the hotel, people working on any tourism related. So those were very, very hard hit in terms of the job losses. While people who had office occupation, fairly immune because they could work from home. Let me compare US situation with Charlottesville region. So the Charlottesville region looks like the following, which shows that there was more of a light foreclosure subprime lending, no major decline. And then job creation steadily upwards. One interesting point is if you look at the US, look at the red line as a reference point for year 2000. Then the subprime prices in the middle of the graph, and then the lockdown job losses in 2020. Compared to Charlottesville, Charlottesville has been consistently above the red line, which is implying that job growth has been relatively better compared to the rest of the country. And also this is showing that roughly 30,000 jobs have been added to Charlottesville over the past 20 years. So longtime residents will probably lament about the traffic situation because with 30,000 additional people living in the region, the Route 29 is getting clogged up. So that's the consequence of the better job market performance compared to other parts of the country. If we look at the 50 states, over the past 12 months, it looks very interesting because all 50 states had very low unemployment rate before the pandemic. So this is the job change from 1 year ago, the most recently available data. Only Idaho has more jobs today compared to 1 year ago. Utah is neutral, but you see that pretty much in the New England states, like New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or you can even say Michigan, Wisconsin, much deeper downturn. While the southern states, the downturn is occurring, but more modestly. And one differential factor regarding why there is a large state variation depends upon whether the governor had a stricter lockdown for a longer period. For example, New York Governor Cuomo said he wants to kill the virus, so he had the much stricter lockdown for a longer period, but it's coming at the expense of much tougher job situation. While other states, say southern states, they have reopened the economy sooner in more relaxing fashion, just telling people, please be careful out there. So you see the variation that's occurring. So wide variation across the country related to the job market. Now, the job situation, another way to look at it is, you see that April, we lost 20 million jobs in April. Then jobs recovery, but look how it's fading away. And in fact, in December, US, we actually lost job rather than create job because the first stimulus package was fading away. People received their $1,200 check and also the unemployment insurance. And we always have to thank the local association presidents because instrumental in our advocacy effort during the initial months of the lockdown to say realtors for the first time ever should qualify for unemployment insurance. It was not their fault as to why the economy shut down. So please thank the local association presidents for the advocacy effort in that. But the stimulus effort began to fade away, which was the reason why we need to pass the second stimulus, the $600 check that I believe many people have already received in your bank deposit, along with the Small Business Administration loan, where if you meet certain criteria, you don't have to repay. Because we wanted to turn this around because we know the vaccine is coming around, but the full impact of the vaccine distribution is probably going to be in midsummer. Most people believe maybe half of America will be vaccinated by, say, May, June time period, and another, say, 25% by autumn. which then will be where we have the herd immunity, and then we can go to the ball games, we can go to a restaurant, we don't have to worry, normalization in life. But till then, we need some level of stimulus. Now that President-elect Biden will be stepping in very soon, along with the Senate being flipped over to Democrats, it is very likely that a bigger stimulus measure may be passed, maybe $2,000 check to individuals, whether from 500 going up to 2,000, it remains to be seen, or whether it's on top of the 500. But we also have to understand that there is no free lunch. That just means larger budget deficit. Well, a good portion of the budget deficit currently is being financed by printing of the money. So printing of the money means that in the future years, not this year or not next year, but in future years, we may have higher inflation that eats away at some of the standard cost of living that we face. So nothing is free lunch, but at least in the short term in 2021, that these additional stimulus is probably going to help the economy grow faster until the vaccine really begins to help the economy as people normalize their life. Another interesting statistics that occurred during the pandemic is the following chart. This chart shows the overall income for the country. GDP is the measure of the economy. We faced the recession, it went down, but the income, what you see on the chart, is actually higher now compared to 1 year before. You see the initial boost from the stimulus and then a little fading away, but even with the fading away before the second stimulus, so this does not include the December checks, you see that income level is actually higher compared to 1 year before. So on average, Americans actually have more income today compared to last year or 12 months ago, period. Now, but we also have to understand there are many families who are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, they're facing potential eviction, but there is an eviction moratorium. One thing that we asked in the recent stimulus measure, the one that was passed in December, was to say that it is unfair for small-time real estate investors not to have the ability to evict for people who don't pay rent, because real estate investors also need to pay their mortgages. So what we push for and what is included in the stimulus is the rent subsidy, which means that people should be receiving some payment to pay the rent. So the real estate investor will be made whole. In case the tenant do not file for rental subsidy, that the landlord has the right to contact with the government official to say, look, my tenant is not paying rent. I need to collect rent to pay my own mortgage or just for your return on your investment. So the landlord has the right to file paper on behalf of the tenants. So we push hard and at least that's in place. So please look into that if you are a real estate investor. Now, income level is high, but what are people doing with this income? They're not spending because they cannot go to a restaurant. They're not able to go on travel. So the savings rate still remains very, very high, which is hinting at once the vaccine is fully in place, that all these savings could be unleashed back into the economy. Going to the ball games, taking the cruise, travel, going to the restaurant. So a good pump up to the economy because there's quite a large savings in the country. Now let's turn to the great news of the housing sector. Home sales made an abrupt U-turn after going down during the lockdown. So when the governor began to reopen the economy, you see the home sales coming around, and then surprise, it went above 1 year ago. So sales actually surging in terms of the closing activity. Let's look at what the builders are doing. Same situation. Builder made a sharp U-turn, and in fact, sales were running about 40% higher compared to 1 year before. In November, it slid down, but still above 1 year ago. So home sales for newly constructed home doing very well, whatever the builders produce, they can easily find a buyer. What do realtors say to their clients to demonstrate seriousness? If you want to be a serious buyer, get a mortgage first. So what are consumers doing? Consumers are taking out mortgages, and it is running essentially 20% above 1 year ago, which means that our pipeline, buyers in the pipeline ready to hit the marketplace. This winter could be one of the best winter ever, and even the spring buying season could be, even better than the normal spring. So if you compare winter with other winters, this particular winter may be one of the best based on this pipeline of buyers in the marketplace. Let me turn your attention also at this point to the other red arrow, which is that at the beginning, sort of straight line, actually drifting a little bit downward. So mortgage application to buy a home. By the way, this chart only shows to buy a home and not refinance. I hope many of you already refinanced, are in better situation, but I excluded refi just looking at the purchase application. So that little red arrow that is drifting down, that is in 2018. In fact, let me go to the prior charts. So here's the new home sales drifting down in 2018. Existing home sales drifting down in 2018. So what was happening to tilt the home sales to go down in 2018? Wasn't 2018 part of the great economy of job creation? And answer is yes, but something else was happening in 2018. Mortgage rate increase from 4% to 5% throughout 2018 to show how sensitive the housing sector is to changes in mortgage rates. Mortgage rate rise, even in a good economy, it can begin to choke up some of the buyers. Why are the sales surging currently? Mortgage rate hitting all-time low of 2.7% average on a 30-year fix. That is why home sales are surging. I would say that December mortgage rates are probably the absolute low point. Expect a little bit higher mortgage rates in January, February, and upcoming months because the 10-year bond yields are already rising. That is an early indicator that mortgage rate will be rising. Why? Well, first, because of, again, large stimulus measure, large budget deficit, large printing of the money, there is no free lunch, and some of the bond investors are saying, well, the money that I'm going to get back after lending the money may lose value because of inflation. And the only way to compensate for that is to charge higher interest rates. So the bond market is already signaling that the absolute low point on mortgage rate may be over. That does not mean that we should panic. It just means that mortgage rate will go up from, say, 2.7% to maybe 3% by the middle of the year. 3% mortgage rate, you say, I take that. I mean, those are still very, very favorable condition. The only point is just to illustrate that the absolute low point in mortgage rate may already be over. Home prices are also rising along with home sales. So the orange line captures the median price. So median prices are rising about 14%. But there is a little skewing of the median price because right now people are buying larger size home that tends to be more expensive. So it's skewing the price data a little upward. There's something called Case-Shiller Repeat Price Index, which tries to control for constant quality or the same house when it gets sold again, what's the price appreciation? And it's showing about 8% price appreciation. So what this is implying is it doesn't matter which metric you are looking at, prices are rising strongly. It also means it will diminish any foreclosure potential. I know that some of your past clients who are struggling with jobs are in mortgage forbearance period. Once the mortgage forbearance period ends, what happens? Do they go into foreclosure? And I would say no, because they have built so much equity, they can simply do a normal sale. We hope your past client are able to find job and make mortgage payments and just get back to normal. But in case they cannot, I don't anticipate any surge in foreclosures. I mean, in a few cases, maybe we'll go through foreclosures, but for the most part, there's a sizable equity homeowners have built up, they would just simply do a normal home sales. The median days on the market is very, very tight. This is on the national level. It's about 20 days on the market. What is most interesting about this chart is that generally during winter months, from Thanksgiving as we go into Christmas, New Year time period, the days on the market generally lengthens in the winter months, but not this year. This year, it is still remaining at a very fast pace. Whatever that is showing up, often drawing multiple offers. So very strong market condition. Why is the market strong or multiple offers? Because there's simply not enough homes for sale. It almost feels like that, I guess the millennial jargon, FOMO, that's the FOMO, fear of missing out. Other people are buying home, well, they want to also buy a home. And right now there's not enough inventory. So whatever shows up, it often attracts multiple offers, especially if it is a starter home. On the upper end range, there is plentiful inventory, so people can make more slow, measured decision. But on either mid-price or below, people need to make a quick decision simply because there is not enough inventory. Are we going to get any inventory help in 2021? And answer is yes, but not in any major meaningful way. Because way to get more inventory is we need to build more homes. This starts the chain reaction of more inventory. Often the builders build it, and it's not for the first-time buyers, but it's for the trade-up buyers. So people trade up into that newly constructed home, but in the process, they release their existing home into the MLS. So that's how we get inventory. So we need to build more homes. And what has the home builders been doing? They have been underproducing for 13 straight years, below historical average. And the cumulative effect of underproduction is we simply don't have enough homes for sale. Now you see on the most recent data point, it is beginning to inch a little higher above the historical average. Very good news, but we need to have this thing to occur for multiple months, possibly even for the next 3 years, way above historical average to get us to the balanced market. So at least we are moving in the right direction. And furthermore, the builders are concentrating on single family housing starts, the blue line. So that is what is rising, while the multifamily apartment or condominium essentially remaining flat, not increasing. But right now the consumers are saying they want large single family homes. So the builders are responding to this. Now, one challenge that the builders have been facing is the price of lumber. It really shot up, which that caused a little shock for the builders. But now the prices are coming down, moderating, so maybe the builders can become a little more aggressive in building. But note that it is still above the normal condition in the price of lumber. The wildfires out in the West Coast has limited the lumber availability. But we can use Canadian lumber, but there is a tariff on Canadian lumber. If we remove the tariff on Canadian lumber, then there could be more job creation in the Charlottesville region as the home builders build more homes. And certainly we need more inventory given the housing shortage. Pandemic has also introduced a new aspect of how we live, work from home. If the pandemic had occurred 10 years ago, it would have crushed the US economy because office workers would not have been able to work from home. High-speed internet availability was not there. But to one degree, the silver lining is that in 2020, America had the high-speed internet, and therefore office workers could work from home. One of the policy push that we are putting out for the Biden administration is to, as part of the infrastructure spending stimulus, which they're considering, please include high-speed internet availability in rural communities. Maybe in Charlottesville, because of the university town, the internet is widely available, but once one goes into, say, smaller towns, the internet is really not available. So therefore, at least high-speed internet. And that's why it is critical that all Americans should have fair access to work from home, and that requires getting the high-speed internet availability into the rural communities. So work from home and locational change preference. So what does this mean? First, office demand is falling, it's collapsing. So very little office demand, even for companies that are creating jobs. Because they are saying, well, people are working from home, why do we need office space? And also, we took survey of realtors about where are your clients looking to buy? And they're saying right now, suburbs or second ring of suburbs like exurbs and rural areas, smaller towns where things are more affordable. Urban city centers should be about 1/3, but now it's shrinking. So essentially the way to read it is people are saying, rather than the city, I want a little further away. If I can work from home, why do I need to be so close to downtown center in DC or Richmond when I can be further away? So people are beginning to say that, and many. I live in Arlington, Virginia, so commute to DC can be a big headache for Northern Virginians. So people are saying, work from home, I can live farther away. Resort recreational area should be less than 10%, but now it's clicking at 13%, a little above. In fact, let me show you this chart. This is the home sales growth. So where is it growing? I mentioned about the spectacular home sales growth. Vacation counties are actually experiencing a faster home sales growth than other normal counties because work from home can also mean work from vacation home. How would you know that whether I am at home or at vacation home? Why should the boss care as long as people are getting their work done? So this also means that you have the great mountains nearby, the wintergreen resort areas, but the smaller communities, people may seek out just for more peaceful life, larger land, and as long as the work from home possibility continues. Some of the technology companies, for example, Twitter, not in terms of their app, but their company, Twitter has announced to their employees, you can work from home forever. So why should the workers stay in San Francisco in those small, tiny houses paying $1 million when they can go elsewhere if they can work from home forever? I would say that for most companies, CEOs will probably have some kind of hybrid. That is to say, come to office 2 days a week when we have a lot of meetings, but other 3 days, work from home. But you have to be productive. I think those will be the new paradigm. And if that's the case, why are people living in Northern Virginia when they can go out to Culpeper, or it could go to Madison, or even all the way to Charlottesville, where there's a large degree of cultural activity because of the UVA being nearby. So you may begin to see more people seeking out longer distances, and Charlottesville, I think, will be one of the beneficiary of this trend of working from home flexibility. So to the forecast is that in 2020, the middle column, we hit a recession, pandemic recession. We lost jobs. Interest rates are absolutely low point. Even with the printing of the money, no inflation, because it takes some time for the inflation pressure to build up. 2021, the economy to be positive because of the stimulus measure. A bigger stimulus measure is possible under the Biden administration, and the job creation will occur. Interest rate continue to be fairly low, maybe slight uptick, with the consumer inflation also beginning to edge upwards, but nothing alarming. And for the housing sector, the forecast is that middle column 2020 last year is that mortgage rate essentially averaged 3% with the record low of 2.7% in December. But during this time, in the pandemic, high unemployment, new home sales increased by 20% year over year. Existing home sales, very strong in the second half, but we have to remember we missed the spring buying season. But even with that, annual sales topping out 2019. Home prices rising strongly. But in 2021, mortgage rate still remaining favorable, just an edge, decimal point higher. New home sales, builders build it, no problem finding a buyer. Existing home sales, your business, I think it could potentially rise about 10% in 2021 over 2020. Home prices in no danger of declining. We just hope that there's more supply so the price growth begins to moderate. So thank you for listening, and thanks for inviting me to share some of my thoughts with great realtors from Charlottesville.
Thank you, Dr. Yan. We appreciate you taking some time to be with us today. We do have some time for question and answer. There's a Q&A tab if you want to put questions in there. And we have a couple to start you off with. One in two parts. With the job growth slowing towards the end of the year and a slight drop in December, do you attribute that all to the stimulus wearing out? Do you expect that to continue or be a foreshadowing of things to come? And the second part of that question being, what is happening in Idaho that's letting them have job growth when nobody else in the country is doing it?
Part is the fading away of the stimulus, but the other part is the coronavirus really getting out of hand. So more restrictive condition related to, say the restaurants, maybe they open the restaurant for indoor dining, half capacity, but now they are beginning to say, no, not even indoor dining is possible, at least in some states. So more restricted condition because coronavirus just got out of hand. And just related to Idaho is that they have a huge influx of Californians moving into Idaho. I think that is helping their local economy. And whether this is the work from home phenomena, but that trend of Californians moving into Idaho or people from Seattle and Portland moving into Idaho, that has been an ongoing trend even before the pandemic. Maybe they are seeking affordability, or maybe people are saying, I want to be away from big cities and more quieter life. Interesting dynamics related to what's happening in Idaho. But at the moment, it's the only state with a positive job creation compared to the year before.
I know one of the things that we banter around about at the association all the time is affordable housing. And looking at your numbers, it's hard to not think that this K-shaped recovery, as we bust up home prices, it will help us with foreclosures, and that's a good thing. But it might also take the most injured in the K-shaped recovery and push them even further away from affordable housing. And as an economist, do you see a solution that we should work towards as the National Association that would help bridge that gap?
The K-shaped recovery that President Clinton is mentioning is to say that there is one path going upward, but other line going downward. So you have, for example, people who are homeowners doing reasonably well because of the housing wealth. And also people who have invested a lot in the stock market, generally the upper income people. Stock market is almost record high, so they're doing well. But generally people in the low wage category, say people working at the restaurant, hotel, really getting hit, job insecurity, they don't have exposure to stock market, and often renters, and things are sliding down. So what can we do about affordable housing? Now, as part of the infrastructure spending, it's possible that Biden administration will try to subsidize the building of a home. So more supply to build a home, because builders are saying, the numbers don't make sense in terms of building affordable home, but now with additional subsidy, maybe they are able to do so. So that's one component. The second component is the Biden administration has mentioned in their potential plan about $15,000 home buyer tax credit, which would be available at the closing table for the first-time buyer. So renters who want to buy a home, because often, you have renters who say, I could actually make the mortgage payment if I buy that, starter home. I can make the mortgage payment. What I don't have is down payment. So that's trying to help renters become homeowners, have an opportunity to build wealth or through home ownership. So that is, in essence, becomes a down payment assistance because it's available at the closing table. I'm sure there will be some limits about the income qualification and such. But trying to stimulate demand without increasing supply will not work. It will just push up prices higher and higher. So we have to have more home construction. Builders are already moving in that direction. One concerning factor for the Biden administration, which we will be educating and talking to very strongly, is they are considering removing 1031 exchange, because 1031 exchange is where many of the land sale, people will sell land to home builders, use 1031 to defer taxes. So if 1031 is taken away, there may be fewer land sales, which means that builders can build less. So we are trying to educate the Biden camp to say how important 1031 is in terms of overall affordable housing, bring more supply to the market.
And then the final question we've got in the chat, as we also watch unemployment figures through the K-shaped recovery, you know that prior to the pandemic, we had reached a state where white versus Hispanic versus Black employment was near equal in terms of unemployment. The job growth and the overall low unemployment rate seem to help be an equalizing event. As we've moved through the pandemic and this K-shaped recovery has happened, I think the latest figures I read, Black unemployment was 10%, Hispanic unemployment was 8%, and white unemployment was 6%. Is there economic policy that you promote or would pursue that would help us re-equalize that again and push us closer? Or are we following the concept of a rising tide for all ships?
Well, rising tide lifting all boats. I mean, there's a good case to be made in that, because that 10 straight years of job creation was one of the key reasons as to why unemployment rate declined across all demographic groups. But related to the Biden administration, the second larger stimulus, which is likely to take place, especially with the Democrats controlling the Senate, the purpose of that is to say, yes, there is some inequity in the system. Let's try to get the economy in the faster growth that may cause inflation and some trouble in the future years, but let's worry about future years at a later point. Let's try to get those people who are unemployed back on employment working. So that's, overall plan, I think, from the Biden camp on the justification as to why they want to push for larger, another stimulus once they come into office.
Dr. Young, we so much appreciate you spending time with us today and really value the role of economists, both in our state and our national group, in helping us be better realtors and directing policy through RPAC and other indications to do the most good. I hope that you and your family are safe and that you have a good rest of your day. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, President Clinton, and everyone have a wonderful day.
We have our next guest speaker coming, a well-known face here, and that is Neil Williamson. Neil serves as the president and executive director of the Free Enterprise Forum, a privately funded public policy organization. He often is the dispenser of wisdom and a shoulder upon which we often lean as an association as we decide what is good local legislation to sponsor. The Free Enterprise Forum is dedicated to fostering communication on a variety of growth, land, and resource management, as well as economic development issues. He is the managing editor of the Free Enterprise Forum blog and Forum Watch, which is the Free Enterprise Forum's monthly email publication. Neil regularly challenges local governments, businesses, and citizens to expand their vision and consider the unintended consequences of their actions. And without further ado, I would like to hand this session over to Neil for his presentation.
Thank you, Quentin, and I hope I can live up to that introduction. I had a little bit of an issue, and I'm going to try and share screen here so that we can move forward. All right, I'm hoping you see that. That's not right. Oh. Great expectations for 2021. I really think this slide sums it up for me in so much as it's there's a light ahead. I just don't know whether it's a positive light or a negative light. I'm optimistic. I think everyone in business is optimistic. I think it's the right thing to be. Housekeeping things to get out of the way first, keeping up in 2021. You all are on your computer. Go ahead and look up freeenterpriseforum.org. When you do that, you look on the right side and it says how you can sign up to follow Free Enterprise Forum blog by email. You'll get an email when I do a blog post, and that email will give you the headline. If you're interested, read it. If not, delete it. I'll never know. You can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Neil S. Williamson, and you can always reach out to me here at neil@freeenterpriseforum.org. I encourage you to be a part, and when you're at the website, you also have an opportunity in that upper right corner to donate to Free Enterprise. 2020 has been very difficult on nonprofits, including this nonprofit. So if you have the opportunity, please, I ask you to donate to support our efforts. Now on with the show. Big surprise, the vaccine is going to take longer. It is on the 11th of January, Virginia had 7,541 doses distributed per 100,000 citizens. That to me is a slow drip. I know the Biden campaign is going to be releasing new strategies. I believe this will get done. It is going to take longer than we want it to. While we wait, we must remain vigilant. And I think that people are getting that message. This morning at 7 a.m., we started with a committee meeting for talking at the General Assembly. Committee meetings start at 7. They run until about noontime. At 11:30, they go into caucus, and noon, they go into general session. The 2021 session is a short session by design. It's constitutionally, it's 30 days. We haven't had a 30-day session in a long time. Usually it gets extended by consensus. Right now, there's not consensus in the General Assembly. So the governor has said, well, if you do a 30-day session, I'm going to call you back for a special session, and we'll make it another 15, 25, whatever it takes. Right now, we have looming elections. We have many legislators that have either resigned or indicated they will be running for higher office. With the House, the General Assembly itself, the delegates will be meeting virtually, and while the Senate will meet at the library, the delegates will not. It is going to be a challenge to lobby the legislators. I will tell you, I've been on the phone and on email more this session early than I ever have been. There will not be a day on the Hill. Monday is generally lobby day. There will not be a lobby day in Richmond. There will be no permits issued. There's a great deal of concern at the Capitol right now based upon things that are going on in the nation. The Realtor legislative agenda. In the packet that was provided to you included details about these issues. One of the things that your team in Richmond does is to determine the best manner in which to approach ideas that come from the membership. This year being a short session, having the elections means that generally speaking, short sessions have shorter legislative agendas. One item that we are pursuing is Realtor Association health plans. Now, you may recall that this organization spoke loudly, and we had real success moving forward the association health plans, only to be stymied by the governor's office last time around. What we're doing this year differently is we're doing a carve out for realtors only. In the past, we were trying to be more inclusive. This is a much more narrowly focused bill, and I anticipate that we will get larger support because the economic impact is significantly less. This is not something new. This is offered to everyone else. It's just the challenge of the business construct of real estate with independent contractors makes this association health plan necessary to be carved out for realtors. Also provided you information about flood risk reporting. This is a strategic move to add this to the laundry list of things that are disclosed, rather than having a different type of reporting that would be much more intensive. There was an Attorney General's ruling regarding POA and COA, that's property owners associations and condo associations. The Attorney General said you can meet electronically. This legislation just provides clarity that that's what the legislators want to have happen. In addition, there was a challenge that in the landlord-tenant foreclosure with source of funds that really got confusing. I encourage you to read the details in the handout, but it's really fixing something and making it mirror what is federal law. More importantly, perhaps, than the realtor agenda is the not realtor legislative agenda. There is a lot of stuff that gets raised in each session that needs our attention. We track probably 2,000 to 3,000 bills each session, and anything having to do with real estate goes before the Public Policy Committee and with a staff recommendation. That committee meets, I guess that's today, this afternoon at 2. We'll be looking at the pre-filed bills. I appreciate everyone who has served on that committee, on the Virginia Association of Realtors, and I would suggest that if you have the opportunity, I encourage you to serve on that committee. Some of the things that I anticipate coming out based on some pre-filed bills that I've seen, there's one particular legislator who wants to have the state determine some local zoning decisions. While I tend to like the idea that behind the intent, which is to allow duplexes and triplexes in single-family residential, I do believe that is the state playing in the locality sandbox. There are a lot of externalities to that, and that's what the locality has the responsibility for. In addition, there are going to be fixes to foreclosures and evictions. Delegate Hudson brought one forward this morning at 7 a.m. Her fix is a positive one. I know that the folks over at VAMA approve of it. It is the idea that there are penalties for property owners and housing providers who cut off the water to someone who hasn't paid the rent. That is a concern that they are working through, and how to best fix that. The VAMA has spoken in favor of the bill. I also have heard murmurings of a revenue bill with the grantor's tax. I think those are just murmurings this year, since we're not really in a budget year, but it's always something we're paying attention to. Housing Albemarle. There is a draft policy for Albemarle County moving forward through the methods that is a new chapter in the comprehensive plan. The draft moving forward includes a mandate that every new housing development include 20% of those new units as affordable to 80% annual median income. On the surface, people think that's great, but that means that 80% of new units are subsidizing that, and that makes them less affordable. I have real concerns about that. There's a creation of the Housing Trust Fund, which is a net positive. It's just, how is it funded? And that question is the third bullet, which is increased local investment. This will be coming forward to the Planning Commission in February and likely get to the board probably June. And I encourage you to pay attention to this. This is really important stuff. Compare and contrast that particular document with Charlottesville's affordable housing plan. This is being consultant driven, and they are pushing forward the idea of soft density by right, which is to increase the density in existing neighborhoods, dedicating $10 million annually to affordable housing for at least 10 years. Now, the challenge is councils cannot dictate what future councils will do. So it has to be a commitment, but it is pre-COVID, I could definitely count the votes for this. Post-COVID, I don't know, and I'll get to that in a moment. Another idea that they are pursuing is a rent control. Right now, there is not legislative ability for rent control in Charlottesville. The consultant is suggesting that Charlottesville go to Richmond and get that control. We have spoken out that that is a bad idea. It has proven improper everywhere it's been tried. They also want to build inclusive governance, which is fine, and adopt progressive and inclusionary zoning reforms. That's the idea of mandating a percentage of housing to be affordable. It's a challenge. Affordable housing is a very complex issue. I don't have to tell this group that. And this document is now closed for public comment and is going back to be resolved, but it is going to be headed to the Planning Commission probably in April. We'll probably have the next opportunity to weigh in on this issue. Charlottesville. Heavens to Betsy. Charlottesville is in a leadership crisis. Now, you say, well, wait a minute, Neil, aren't you being a little dramatic? Those aren't my words. Those are the words of a counselor. They're in a leadership crisis. Just to review, in February, the Neighborhood Development Services Director was demoted, kept his salary, and retained while they conducted a national search. In October, the city manager left, and the city attorney became city manager, and the deputy city attorney became city attorney. So December, there's a press conference. They hired a new NDS director. Great guy, go, 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 go. The NDS director, 10 days later, is announced as a new planning director in Prince William County. He quit before he even started. This is a challenge. And who let me know that? But the deputy city manager who was leaving later that month. So now we have the HR director left in December. They had a contract with a recruiter to recruit a city manager. The recruiter, according to many reports, said, you are going to have a real challenge getting anybody to come to Charlottesville that's talented because of the current political environment. They canceled the contract with the recruiter. The second deputy city manager announced her leaving. For those keeping track, the third deputy city manager position is vacant. So we have 3 empty deputy city manager positions. And then today, here's an emergency meeting and press conference at 2 p.m. to explain what's been going on in Charlottesville. What's been going on in Charlottesville has been messy. Earlier this month, Mayor Walker and Councilor Lloyd Snook took to Facebook, and I've clipped some of the information here. Lloyd Snook said that his bowing out, this is with regard to the recruiter, is not due to the fact of the actions of Chief Brackney, but were differently attributable to the dysfunction on council, starting with the mayor and her email of December 10. In my opinion, we will not be able to hire a permanent city manager until after the next election in November 2021, and we should not try. Mayor Walker took to Facebook and pushed back and said that I am tired of my white colleagues placing the blame for everything that goes wrong at my feet and using their fragility to excuse their cunning behavior and the cunning behavior of some staff and community members. Meanwhile, back in City Hall, on Tuesday night, Molly Conger put forth a tweet from the Planning Commission meeting where the acting planning director, Missy Creasy, said that these changes in staffing, they lost 2 more members of their staff, came as after the agenda packet had been written, and they went from stretching to meet new work to struggling to manage the day by day. I will be tuning in at 2 p.m. I will be very interested in what City Council has to say, because this lack of leadership is really impacting getting things done. I'm hearing from businesses across the spectrum, political and different businesses, restaurants, others, that they go to City Hall and they hear, you can't do that. There's nobody here that does that anymore. But I need this processed. Well, there's no one here to do that. We have a crisis in leadership in Charlottesville, and it will be interesting to see how it moves forward. Talking about the elections, this is an off-year election. That means that there are no federal elections, but there is a statewide election. The statewide will be electing a governor, a lieutenant governor, and an attorney general. The House of Delegates, everybody's up in our neck of the woods. That's Bell, Hudson, and Runyon. We have Mayor Walker and Heather Hill, whose terms are expiring. Mayor Walker had indicated previously that she will be running. Ms. Hill has not made an indication. I am reading the tea leaves that I don't think she's going to run. Juan Diego Wade earlier this week actually brought forth his candidacy. He has served on, I've known Juan for 17 years, and he served on the school board in Charlottesville. He will be a very interesting Democratic candidate. The thing to watch is, will the Democrats nominate another person because if you recall, Mayor Walker ran as an independent, not a Democrat. So there's machinations there. In Albemarle, you have three supervisors up, Ned Galloway, Diantha McKeel, and Liz Palmer. I anticipate that two of the three will run. I'm not certain about Liz Palmer. She's had a number of outside pressures, and so I'm not certain whether or not she will run, but I do believe the other two will be running for re-election. In Green, two supervisors are up, Bill Martin and Marie Durier. I have not heard either way. Bill has been making motions that he's retiring from public service, but he hasn't stated so publicly. And then we have three Fluvanna supervisors, Tony O'Brien, Mike Sheridan, and Don Weaver, who are up for re-election, and I've not talked to any of them about their positions. There are also school board positions coming up. I think this is a great opportunity for realtors to step forward. I will say that I have received word that there will be at least one realtor on a ballot this fall. I'm not allowed to say who or where and when, but it will happen. And I encourage others, if you think you wish to serve, call me. I will let you know what's involved. It is important that we have leadership. Charlottesville is a great example of that right now. So if you have questions, concerns, or you're interested in perhaps getting in, call me, email me, send me a text. I'm happy to talk to you about any and all of these positions. Final prediction, seats available will return in 2021. This is me with Allison Rabel from the Daily Progress. In my last true public meeting, this is the Albemarle County Office Building, the Lane Auditorium, and it is safely distant, but this was March 17th, thus the green jacket. And I do believe that we are going to have hybrid meetings, much as Dr. Yoon was speaking about the idea of work from home and work from the office. I think we're going to see hybrid meetings where you have the public participating both in person and online. And I think actually that's a positive for the entire governance and for public participation. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Quentin if you have any questions.
Thank you, Neil. We do have some time here. If you have questions for Neil, please feel free to put them in the question box. A couple of things that have been brought up. As we look at the many openings that you have in the city, how will this affect moving forward plans for new construction and affordable housing? As we heard from Dr. Yoon, increasing that inventory and making that available has a full impact on the economy. And it feels like from your presentation, all things normal are slowed and or precarious in the current setting.
I think precarious is a good way to put it. When you have staff saying we are barely managing the day-to-day is those approvals, especially by right approvals. And I understand from many of my builder friends that it's a challenge to get documents moved through City Hall right now. And you can understand why when you see the number of empty seats and the lack of leadership in NDS.
My friends in and around the city tell me that the conference today will announce the new city manager. Is that your feel?
I have heard that rumor, but I've heard the rumor that it would be an announcement of an interim city manager, not a true new city manager. And there are a couple of names that have been floated, including the former city manager, interim city manager, Mike Murphy. It is a job that I worry who is going to serve. I recall another locality that was in a bit of turmoil that someone stepped in that really didn't need the job. And that was the best person for the job because they did not care whose egos they bruised to get the job done of processing applications and doing the work of the city.
And in the city and the county surrounding us, is there any one project that you sort of have a red ribbon on that you hold out hope for that you feel would have a huge impact on us in terms of development?
I am very encouraged by the work of the Community Land Trust. I am encouraged by the work of Habitat for Humanity. I am interested in how our underdeveloped development area moves forward, but I'm most concerned with the idea that we continually hear, as we did Tuesday night from residents in Crozet, that the concept of increased density is something that is not desired by people in the development areas. This is a true conflict, and they'll say, I wish to have density and affordable housing, but I want to have that not so close to me.
I know a mutual friend of ours, Matthew Gilligan, has a lot to say on that as well.
That he does.
I would like to point out to everybody that the Free Enterprise Forum is a nonprofit and could use your support. We certainly benefit from having people that watch and inform and communicate back to us items that we can have an effect on that also affect our industry and our community as a whole. Thank you so very much, Neil. I'm going to give you one more question since we have a few extra minutes here. It's from Pat Whittam. What is the working relationship between the city manager and the mayor in terms of who controls what?
That's a great question from someone who is a great person. The city mayor is a first among equals. It is a ceremonial position. It is not an elected position from the populace. As such, the city manager does not report to the mayor. The city manager reports to the council. That is part of the construct of a weak mayor system. The goal of a successful city manager in a weak mayor system is to have a good, solid working relationship with all of the councilors and have all of the correspondence and all of the work run through the city manager's office. In a difficult relationship, council goes directly to lower staff, and that creates chaos in the underlying organization because council is telling staff one thing and the city manager may be saying something different or is unaware of what council is wanting to do. For what it's worth, I did want to mention the press conference is going to be streamed live. You go to charlottesville.org, or you can probably follow it on their Facebook page as well. And it promises to be an interesting session.
Thank you, Neil, very much. We appreciate your time and your ongoing support.
Thank you.
So as we move towards the end of our first general membership meeting, and we are offering a discounted early bird registration rate for the Graduate Realtor Institute courses 501 through 508, which we will be hosting in 2021. This is a total savings of almost $200. In addition, if you need to renew your real estate license soon, then please sign up for the classes being hosted virtually in February, offering both continuing education and post-licensure credits. More information of these offerings can be found in your handouts at the link in the chat box. The last two reminders, there is the CAAR Annual Awards and CAAR Professional Honor Society. The deadline for the CAAR 2020 Annual Awards is Friday, January 22nd. If you know of a colleague who has stepped up in 2020, we ask you to nominate them for a respected CAAR Annual Award. The categories available are listed on the screen. Next, the Professional Honor Society is a prestigious accolade that was instituted by CAAR in 1996 to recognize standards of industry excellence and service. Realtors earn points throughout the year in 4 focus areas: association involvement, professional development, leadership and volunteer participation, and sales production. The deadline to submit for a 2020 Professional Honor Society form is Monday, February 1st. New this year, and in part of our work to go virtual, all forms for awards must be submitted electronically and are available on the website. To conclude this morning's meetings, I would like to welcome the following new Realtor members: In addition, we would like to welcome our new affiliate members. Thank you again for joining us at this morning's meeting. I hope everybody has a great day today, and this meeting is adjourned.